I have 100% confidence that I'm fighting Conor McGregor June 29th. In his entire career, when he says he's going to come to a fight and be at a fight, has he ever pulled out of a fight? June 29th is what I'm preparing for. I'm leaving my family here in the next couple weeks to head down to Florida.
Conor McGregor is out of 303 versus Michael Chandler with an injury.
What's going on, guys? We have some breaking news. The main event of UFC 303, Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, is officially off. It has been announced by UFC President Dana White. And I want to start off this video by holding a moment of silence for Michael Chandler, because he is undoubtedly laying in bed right now with the sheets over his head, bawling his eyes out with one dude on his mind. He is heartbroken and he is devastated. And honestly, quite honestly, I feel bad for him. And that's unfortunate, because who could have possibly anticipated this? Who could have possibly guessed that Conor McGregor was going to pull out of the fight against him at UFC 303? And by the way, we have an entirely new card. We're going to go through every fight on the card, or every new fight on the card, in this very video. But let's start off by taking a trip down memory lane of some of the statements that I've made over the past year and a half regarding Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor. Let's take a look. He's not in training camp. He's not taking it seriously. Anytime you see him, he's out on a yacht drinking, doing coke. He's not in the USADA pool. All the signs point to he is not fighting. If you're getting excited for Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, I wouldn't get excited at all. Ultimately, Conor McGregor is not going to fight Michael Chandler, which I've been saying literally since January when it was announced. He's going to sit out 15 months? 15 months to wait for a fight that may never materialize? There is no doubt in my mind that Michael Chandler would go into an NBA Finals public restroom with Conor McGregor consensually to get this fight. Conor McGregor's been out drinking. He's been out partying. He's been out, taking women to NBA Final public restrooms, whether it's consensually or non-consensually. And he just seems like he's kind of checked out. I think he's sitting in his car, listening to Creed. He's 6 foot from the edge. He's thinking, I've been sitting out for almost 2 years. This has been my sacrifice, because Michael Chandler's in his late 30s. And I think Conor McGregor is totally playing Michael Chandler and may never end up actually fighting him. Michael Chandler just went on WWE Monday Night Raw and is literally groveling and begging and pleading for Conor McGregor to finally accept a fight with him. I do not believe this fight happens. I believe within the next week or so, they will announce some meaningful title fights that will replace Conor McGregor. Maybe Chandler stays in. Maybe Chandler is postponed. Maybe they move Conor McGregor to the Sphere. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. But if you ask me right now to assess all the information we have, I think the fight's not going to happen. I don't think UFC 303 will be McGregor versus Chandler. So as you can see, I have been very clear from the jump that Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler would never happen. Now, there's still a glimmer of hope, because realistically, the breaking news is Michael Chandler continues to wait on Conor McGregor per Ariel Helwani, because now Michael Chandler is no longer on UFC 303. Conor McGregor has pulled out with the injury. It's an undisclosed injury. But for the last year and a half, I've been saying, look, I don't think Conor shows up for the fight. And I know people are going to say down in the comments, Joey, you just got lucky. It's an injury. It's a freak injury, fluke injury, whatever it may be. And you just got lucky, and now you're kind of celebrating it, or you're taking a victory lap. Honestly, I have to take a victory lap. I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so. I've been saying this for a year and a half, regardless of the Instagram post that Michael Chandler featured me in that we're going to take a look at, regardless of the DMs that Michael Chandler sent me, regardless of the ridiculous amount of hate and backlash I got for my opinion. And as time has gone on, it's lessened and more people have come to my side. But summer of 2023, I said it's not going to happen. Well, I said it long before that, but then people were speculating summer 2023. Then it was fall of 2023. Then it was December of 2023. Then it was UFC 300. And then ultimately it was UFC 303. And when UFC 303 was announced, people were like, Joey, you see, Joey, you were wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. And I said, look, this is as close as we ever have gotten to McGregor Chandler happening. But I'll believe it when I see it. I still believe it's not going to happen. but ultimately it may happen now that they've officially announced it. And I stayed on that stance. And then 10 days ago, or right now it's 11 days ago, the UFC 303 pre-fight presser in Dublin was canceled. And I said right then and there, I made a video the very next day. I said, look, I'm confident the fight is off. It's not official. Dana White hasn't confirmed it. No reliable source has confirmed it. But I can say, with all the details, I am confident that this fight is canceled. And people have said to me, whether it was right after UFC 303 was announced, when Chandler posted the IG, reel where it featured my voice, or the messages that he sent me, or the comments that I received, people have told me, Joey, you're only saying this because you hate Michael Chandler, because you hate Conor McGregor. And that's just simply not true. It doesn't make any sense. Why would I tell you, look, based on my assessment of X, Y, and Z, I believe this will be the outcome? What good does it do me to give you my honest opinion, or what you guys are suggesting, non-honest opinion, just because I dislike somebody, to ultimately be wrong? No, I assessed the situation and all the information we had, and I said, look, I just don't think it's going to happen. I don't think it's going to come to fruition. And as time went on, more people came to my side, but it just simply made no sense to me. Well, wait a second. What if I end up being wrong? And ultimately, if I was wrong, it is what it is. I am here to tell you my honest opinion. I'm not here to sit on the fence when I don't need to sit on the fence for fear of being wrong, for fear of backlash. And last Monday, when I came out and reiterated my stance, look, especially now with this presser canceled, I'm confident it's not going to happen. When that Wednesday came along, when Ariel Helwani said there's positive vibes, and Chandler went on the podcast that nobody looked into, and he said the fight's still on, even though when he was first asked, he said hopefully. Everyone all of a sudden jumped on me and said, Joey, look, you were wrong. Chandler said the fight's on. Chandler's been saying that for 2 fucking years. He's been saying it for 2 years. You want me to believe him now? And then once I dig into the podcast, and I made multiple videos, I'll link them down in the description. I have an entire playlist on this since, January of 2023. When you dig into the podcast, he says hopefully when he's asked. He stumbles over his words, says hopefully. So it doesn't surprise me that this fight is canceled. It doesn't surprise me that this fight is off. And again, I know people are going to say, Joe, you couldn't have predicted an injury. This is a freak injury. I knew no matter what it would end up being, what it would inevitably be, whether it's an injury, whether it's a drug test failure, whether it's legal trouble, whatever it may have been, I knew some way, shape, or form Conor McGregor would ultimately not fight Conor McGregor. That was my take. Regardless of when it was announced for UFC 303, I stayed with that opinion. I died on that hill. When the presser got canceled, I said, look, I'm even more confident now that the presser's canceled. The second the news was posted, I posted it in my Discord. I said, look, the fight's off. Then, when all that info came out, I made a bet with one of my Discord members. If you want to become a member and support the channel, join the Discord. Links is in the description. But I made a bet. He said, look, dude, Joe, you don't know what you're talking about. I'm confident now. Look what Ariel said. Look what Chandler said. I said, all right, let's make a bet. We made a bet. Who do you think won that bet now? Because Dana White has come out and said that Conor McGregor has pulled out of the fight. Now we have a totally different UFC 303, which we're going to get to in this video. Sorry about the long prologue, but I want to jump right into an Instagram post that Michael Chandler posted in the immediate aftermath of UFC 300 when UFC 303 was announced on a napkin at the post-fight presser by Dana White. And I want you to listen very, very carefully. I want you to listen very, very carefully at the very first voice featured in this clip. Conor McGregor is totally playing Michael Chandler and may never end up actually fighting him. Sound familiar? Sound familiar? I might have used it in the intro. I might have used it in the intro myself. Let's listen to the rest of it.
And it's getting to the point where McGregor's kind of playing Michael Chandler like a fiddle. He's kind of just messing with Michael Chandler.
I told you we'd be right here. The fight is announced. It's time to start preparing. Thank you guys who have been on the...
He told us. Hey, he told us, guys. He told us. And he messaged me soon after this video drop, by the way.
This journey with me. Thank you. Those of you who have believed in me, now it's time to go get the job done. And to all you hating ass mother pieces of shit sitting around on your keyboards in your grandma's basement.
Is he talking about me? And when I saw this, and that's the end of the video, basically, it's just a weird edit after that, I said, you know what? Chandler goes around talking about religion and his Christianity. This doesn't seem very Christian to me. And maybe, maybe this is just the Lord's punishment. They took away the Conor McGregor fight. Now, supposedly it's going to get rescheduled. Supposedly. I will only believe it when I see it at this point. I think, honestly, and I'm going to make another video on this in the next week or two, I think there's a very high probability that Conor McGregor never fights in the UFC again, but that's a whole topic for another video, let alone fights Michael Chandler. Now, Ariel is reporting, and we're going to take a look at that reporting here in a second, that the UFC is looking to reschedule Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler, but there was no even hint of that from Dana White during the announcement, which we'll also take a look at in this video. Now, the next thing I want to take a look at is Michael Chandler's direct messages to me right after this fight was announced. Message number one, or actually he sent me two messages. This is both of them in the screen right now. He said, sorry to hear about your passing of your beloved video thread towards me and my decisions in my illustrious career. You really did have a good run. Keep your head up. And then I responded with, don't worry about it. I have Creed and Sad Squatch to drown out my sorrows. I had a great run, and it could be worse. I could have wasted years waiting for another grown man to show me attention. I'm happy for you, and hopefully McGregor puts you in the north-south position in your fight, and you'll really be on cloud nine. I'll be making an updated video later today. Thanks for watching. See you at the top. His illustrious career. My thread about his illustrious career is ended, according to him, way back in April. I don't think so. Not so fast, Chandler. Not so fast, Chandler. I feel bad for him, honestly. I hate to take this victory lap, but at the end of the day, this is not so much about Michael Chandler. This is just about, for me, looking at a set of information. Look at all the evidence we have, following the breadcrumbs and looking at all the different clues and giving you my assessment. I have to give you my honest opinion. What am I supposed to say? I guarantee there was plenty of media members, whatever you want to say, the mainstream MMA media. I guarantee there's plenty of members that thought, oh, this fight's not going to happen. But they're not going to say that. They don't want to stick their neck out and be wrong. I will gladly be wrong and stick my neck out when I'm confident in something, because if you've been watching the channel over the last 2-3 years since the inception of the channel, historically, on incredibly nuanced topics like this, usually I end up being correct. A large percentage. Not all the time, but usually it seems that I come out on top. See you at the top, Michael Chandler. Now, the other thing I want to take a look at is Ariel Helwani's tweets that he posted about the fight cancellation, and we're going to talk about a little bit of credibility issues for Ariel Helwani that a lot of people were talking about recently. But let's read this. Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler at UFC 303 on June 29th has been canceled per Dana White. The new main event is Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka for the light heavyweight title. He forgot to say two, but that's besides the point. McGregor versus Chandler will be rebooked later this year. The fight has been pushed because McGregor suffered an injury right before last week's press conference in Dublin. Everyone involved, the UFC McGregor paradigm, did everything in their power to save this. It didn't look good initially, then it didn't, then it did, and then finally it didn't. The plug was officially pulled less than 48 hours ago. There weren't a ton of options. Pereira versus Prochazka was always top choice. Feelers were sent out last week, but there were hurdles. Mainly, Pereira was in Australia on a seminar tour and is getting over a couple broken toes, but he stepped up again. Prochazka was in right away. So Jiri didn't hesitate. He took the fight right away. Pereira was kind of hesitant about it, but ultimately took the fight. And we're going to talk about that more in depth later in the video. The next tweet he has is no new date yet for McGregor versus Chandler. They're hoping for August or September. And I know people are going to bring this up. Joey, it just got postponed. Joey, it just got pushed back. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. Right now, my opinion is I do not believe this happens. I think there is, I wish I could put a percentage on it, but I'm just not willing to do that just yet. But I think there's a decent percentage, a decent probability that Conor never fights in the UFC again. That's a topic for another video that I'm going to do. But Ariel Helwani is here saying it's going to get postponed. So breaking news, Michael Chandler continues to waste his career away in his late 30s waiting for Conor McGregor, waiting for a fight at a mythical weight class, at a mythical time, against a guy who seems mythical at this point. The last time Conor McGregor fought, Pereira nor Diego Lopez was on the roster. And who knows how many other fighters weren't on the roster last time Conor McGregor fought. And we're going to go through those new fights here shortly. Another thing I want to mention is the fact that people were questioning Ariel Helwani's credibility throughout all this. And I'm not a huge Ariel Helwani fan. I'm not some Ariel Helwani simp, defender, whatever you want to call it. But it's very clear from the very beginning. And I even kind of called into question Ariel's credibility in a way, but people didn't really understand what I was saying. I think the majority of you did, but there were some people. I said, look, the only way Ariel is wrong is if it's like a slight cover story for contract negotiations, but either way, he's getting his information from the Conor McGregor camp. And there's been some people saying Ariel's waffling and Ariel's just, saying whatever and whatnot. And it's just ridiculous because it's been very clear. And I broke this down the Monday after the press conference was announced. It was very, very clear what Ariel was saying. Ariel was saying that Conor was injured. They were hopeful with some time off that he could still fight on June 29th. Then that Wednesday, he said, look, everything's looking positive vibes, because Conor was taking some time off and he was still saying, you know what, I'm going to stay in the fight. And then Chandler said, your fight's still on, hopefully. Nobody picked up on the hopefully, but then we fast forward to this Monday. He says, look, it's in jeopardy, it's in limbo, and then officially now on Thursday evening, officially, it's now Friday morning, early Friday morning, it has been canceled. And people are saying, like, Ariel's going to make this up because Dana and the UFC are going to feed him bad information to make him look dumb. That theory, and I broke this down in my video from a couple days ago, it just holds no water. There's no logic to it, It's Occam's razor. The simplest explanation is usually true. And to say somehow Dana and the UFC are concocting a plan with Conor McGregor in his camp to feed Ariel information that he's being kind of vague about and being kind of coy about, all to then inevitably have the fight happen, it makes absolutely no sense in any realm of possibility or anything like that. Now, ultimately, will McGregor Chandler ever happen? I say no. Gun to my head, I say no, and I think I live. But you never know. We'll continue to cover this story as it happens. Now, if you take a look at the UFC 303 announcement, we're going to take a look at all the fights. I think there's a couple key takeaways from this announcement that nobody has mentioned yet. And so we're going to go through, play the announcement, and then we're going to talk about all the fights that Dana White announced. This is the official announcement from UFC President Dana White.
All right, guys, here I am again. Conor McGregor is out of 303 versus Michael Chandler with an injury. The new main event is Alex Pereira, former not only UFC middleweight champion, he's also the first and only fighter to win both middleweight and light heavyweight titles in UFC history.
So one thing I want to play again, because they're getting into Pereira's, main event title defense. But listen to when he talks about Conor here. I meant to pause it earlier, but listen to what he says about Conor.
McGregor is out of 303 versus Michael Chandler with an injury. The new main event.
So that's it. Conor's out with an injury. So two takeaways from that. There's two takeaways from that, in my opinion. One, no mention of Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler being rescheduled. Two, he didn't carry water for Conor McGregor. He didn't say, look, the kid did everything, we asked of him. The kid wanted to fight, but ultimately couldn't make it. Like, to kind of almost defend Conor for pulling out. Not that he needed to be defended, but it just was very telling when I reacted to this live that he didn't say anything. Like, oh yeah, Conor wanted to fight. He wanted to stay. And, it's Conor's whole kind of ego personality. Everyone says he never pulled out of a fight. He's never injured. But I just wanted to point that out. Now let's get into the fight announcements.
Is Alex Pereira, former not only UFC middleweight champion, he's also the first and only fighter to win both middleweight and light heavyweight titles in UFC history. And he is facing former UFC light heavyweight champion Jiri Prochazka, the co-main event.
So there you go. We have Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka 2 for the light heavyweight title. I'm going to go through each one of these fights after we get through the announcement, but let me just say this. I love and I hate the fight. I love the fight. It's an amazing matchup. It's for a title. Both are highly skilled. Both are super exciting. I hate meaningful fights on short notice. 2 weeks notice. Pereira's off in Australia hanging out with broken toes. Now he's rushing back to train and fight Jiri Prochazka. Jiri took a lot of damage at UFC 300. I know it's been 2 months, but at the end of the day, I just don't like it, especially considering it's a rematch. If Jiri loses, where does he go from there if Pereira's still the champ? Also, if Jiri wins, they're going to be like, oh, well, we took it on short notice. We weren't healthy. So it's just a massive asterisk next to a mega fight that otherwise was not needed. So while I love the matchup, I love both fighters, it's just unfortunate. I hate short notice fights, and I've been said that.
Will be number 3 ranked Brian Ortega, who has the second most finishes in featherweight history, and the second most submissions in featherweight history. And he will be taking on rising superstar Diego Lopez. Also, Jamahal Hill.
So, Brian Ortega, Diego Lopez. Love this matchup. This is a fight that I've been calling for a while. Diego Lopez is currently ranked number 14. Ortega is ranked in the top 5. Dana just said it, but I don't remember number 4, number 3. Where's the outcry for that? Where's the it's not Dagestani privilege. Where's the Hispanic privilege for Diego Lopez? Nobody's going to cry about that. One decent win against Sadiq Yusuff, and I'm happy to see this fight, but where's the outrage for that? This is a banger fight. I think UFC 303 on paper is a better card, in my opinion. Let's get to the Jamahal Hill news. Let me actually just rewind it a few seconds, because Dana actually lies here. Caught bold-faced lying here, I know for a fact, and we're going to point it out. No one else has called this out yet.
Star Diego Lopez. Also,
probably because no one else knows.
Jamahal Hill is out with a knee injury. So, Carles Ulberg, who is 11-1 and has 6 first-round finishes with 7 wins by knockout and 2 wins by submission, will now be taking on Anthony Smith. He has 21 first-round.
So there you go. Final fight they announced, Carles Ulberg versus Anthony Smith. This card is a banger. I think this card overall is better than it was originally, on paper at least. Again, I hate big short notice fights, but on paper, I think it's a much better card. Now, the main event, Alex Pereira, Jiri Prochazka. What to say about Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka? You have the super technical kickboxer in Alex Pereira coming off of that brutal KO win against Jamahal Hill at UFC 300 in the main event. He took no damage, but he came in with a broken toe. Apparently, he suffered another broken toe in the fight. He wanted to turn around quickly for UFC 301. That didn't happen. That would have been awesome. And now he's not really in training camp, and he's taking time off, and he's out in Australia, and he's now coming back to train for 2 weeks to fight Jiri Prochazka, who's an absolute savage, wild maniac. Now, ultimately, I know I just kind of broke this down. I do love this fight, but guys, I hate that it's on short notice. But let me just say this. On paper, this main event is way better than Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. I've talked about this ad nauseum, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. Conor McGregor returning is essentially a celebrity fight. Conor hasn't gotten a decent win in 8 years. Since 2016, that's the last time Conor had a decent win. This dude's basically retired already, and we're bringing him back after a catastrophic injury in a 3-year layoff to trot him out there in a main event because he's a star. He's a mega star. Don't give a rat's ass about Conor McGregor, Michael Chandler. I feel bad for Michael Chandler. I feel bad for the Irish fans who maybe bought tickets to the press conference, or I think the press conference might have been free, or bought tickets to the event. And by the way, the press conference was postponed, remember? Postponed. I told you guys it was canceled. They just say postponed. You know, ultimately, Pereira versus Prochazka is better. Early pick, I really want to pick Prochazka. I picked Prochazka the first time around. I thought he was doing very well before he got clipped, hurt, and then ultimately finished. It was a bit of an early stoppage as well. I might change my mind. Jiri apparently said yes right away and was already training. Pereira kind of hesitant to say yes, according to Ariel Helwani. And out in Australia. But I'm going to say Pereira for an early prediction by KO. Yuri's just so crazy. Rockage was piecing him up. Ultimately came back, caught Rockage, and finished him. But you look at UFC 300 and you look at their performances, Prochazka took so much damage. Pereira took no damage. He slept out Jamahal Hill badly in the first round. Took no damage. So early prediction, I'm going Alex Pereira via KO. Now, co-main event, Brian Ortega versus Diego Lopez. What a featherweight matchup this is. Let's actually take a look at Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez, 24-6. His most recent wins, Sadiq Yusuff, Pat Sabatini, Gavin Tucker, made a short notice debut against Movsar Evloev. I believe he's currently ranked number 14 in the UFC official rankings. And then you have Brian Ortega, who has been around for a while, has a win over Yair Rodriguez, lost to Yair Rodriguez, shoulder injury, lost to Volkanovski, and honestly, he hasn't been super active. His last win before Yair was in 2020 against the dead body of Chan Sung Jung. I like this matchup quite a bit. I hate that it's on short notice. It's a massive fight for the featherweight division. If Diego Lopez wins, he's right in title contention, in my opinion. And I love when you have these guys who look really good and you just throw them up to the top of the division. I know people complain based on where they're from or what their religion is if they get a big jump up. But for me personally, I don't care. I love seeing these matchups on occasion. And Brian Ortega, honestly, hasn't really done all that much recently. So I think it's fun for him to have to fight down against Diego Lopez. But shout out for Ortega taking this fight, and shout out for Lopez for taking this fight. Both are savages. Early prediction, both have amazing jiu-jitsu. Ortega's striking is improving, in my opinion, but I don't know if he can go out there and beat Diego Lopez in the striking. I think this is a very close fight. I'm picking Diego Lopez. I think he has a massive power advantage. I know Ortega's known for his chin and the way he survived against Alexander Volkanovski, but I'm going Diego Lopez by KO. Now, featured fight on the card, we have Anthony Smith versus Carles Ulberg. Jamahal Hill pulled out with a knee injury. Let's be honest what really happened here, okay? Jamahal Hill putting out on social media, calling out anybody who's talking shit. 20K, pull up to my gym. Nobody's going to tell you guys this, but I pulled up to Jamahal Hill's gym, and that's why he's out. I'm 20K richer. Jamahal Hill's out of the fight, and now we're getting Anthony Smith versus Carles Ulberg. Anthony Smith coming off a win over Vitor Petrino, which a lot of people thought he was going to lose. Before that, got KO'd by Khalil Roundtree. Before that, squeaked by Ryan Spann. Before that, lost to Johnny Walker. Before that, lost to Magomed Ankalaev. I think Anthony Smith's on his way out. I mean, look, 10 losses via KO, TKO. He's been around forever. I'm going Carles Ulberg by KO. So, top 3 fights are all bangers. Side note, I want to point out, Myro Bueno Silva, Macy Chaston, what is it doing here on the card? It should definitely be co-main event. I'm kidding. What is it doing here? Move that off the main card. That's an absolute travesty. Absolute travesty, that is. But ultimately, I think Carles Ulberg, far superior striker to Anthony Smith. Anthony Smith's going to have to try to grapple him, but Ulberg has good enough grappling, I think, to kind of fend off the takedowns. And I think he's just faster, more athletic, more accurate on the feet, bigger power. Anthony Smith, we barely found a pulse in the last fight. We barely found a pulse, but against Khalil Roundtree, I can't forget him doing a spinneroonie. So I'm going Carles Ulberg in this matchup. I have to go with him in this fight. I just can't pick Anthony Smith. Now, ultimately, UFC 303, again, is on paper, it's better. But I'm just sad. I'm just sad overall. And I know people know that I didn't want to see Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. I did not give a rat's ass about that fight. But what I'd much less rather see is important, notable fights strung together on short notice that can send fan favorites, or in general, they don't even have to be fan favorites, but great fighters into downward spirals in their career for no reason, a la Alexander Volkanovski. So just remember this, and I'm just looking into the future. We got to appreciate these guys in this moment in time. Alex Pereira, for all we know, he takes this on short notice, gets brutally KO'd, and never the same. Same thing could happen for Jiri Prochazka. Or Jiri Prochazka gets brutally KO'd, never gets a title shot again because Pereira holds onto the belt for another 2 years. And by that time, Prochazka falls off a cliff. So, I love it. I hate it. It's a much better card on paper. But ultimately, the biggest loser here is none other than Michael Chandler. He is 6 foot from the edge, and he's thinking maybe 6 foot isn't too far down. He's thinking this is my sacrifice. He's thinking he's created his own prison. And I really am looking at Michael Chandler right now, and I'm thinking, is this motherfucker really going to wait another couple months and pray that he gets this fight? He has sat out since November of 2022. I had just started my channel a couple months prior, and he has sat out since then. And he's still going to wait around for Conor McGregor. This guy's making, honestly, at this point, his career is beyond repair. And this is all for a red panty night that really doesn't exist. It really, quite frankly, doesn't exist. He's not getting pay-per-view points. So I hope the UFC cut him a check. I don't want to dance on his grave too much. But I hate to say I told you so, but I told you so, Michael Chandler. And I hope he watches this video, to be quite honest. And I hope, please go fight Michael Chandler. Please go fight somebody else, anybody else. Fiziev, BSD, Oliveira, anyone, Holloway, Gaethje, I don't care, Dustin Poirier, rematch. Go fight someone. You've wasted your late 30s sitting around praying for Conor McGregor to show you attention. And you continually flattering him with, oh yeah, he never pulled out. I showed that in the intro. He's never pulled out. Well, he did now. He did now. And by the way, we'll end the video on this note. Smart move by Conor McGregor pulling out of this fight. Smart move. I think there's some contract pieces moving around behind the scenes a little bit. Why are you coming back from a catastrophic leg break with a 3-year layoff and you're going to try to stay in a fight injured just because of monetary reasons? And I really truly do believe the UFC, Dana White, Hunter Campbell push some of these guys, especially in extreme circumstances like this, they push fighters to fight injured. They would prefer for them to fight injured. And overall, it's just a career detriment because Conor's already behind the 8 ball. Conor already could show up and get starched out cold by Michael Chandler, and everyone would be like, well, this was what was going to happen. He's out drinking, he's out partying, and he's not taking it seriously, and he's coming in from a 3-year layoff. Of course he was going to get starched. But now a layer on top of it of him being injured going into the fight, it just makes no sense. One thing I would love to know is, how was he injured? Because I'm sure they're going to say training, but it wouldn't shock me if, he was having a drink or he was sniffing it and he was like, look at the cream, yeah? And then he started guzzling it down, and then 1 led to 2, 2 led to 3. Next thing you know, he's falling down the steps. So I would love to know the specifics of how the injury was obtained. If it is something like that, I don't think we'll ever hear about it. But Conor McGregor's out of the fight at UFC 303. The card we got is ultimately better. We'll have to see how it plays out. It's right around the corner. This is absolute craziness. The last few days as an MMA fan has been craziness. Khamzat Chimaev is out of his fight with Robert Whittaker. Ikram Alaskarov is stepping in. I did a video on that, which I will link down in the description. And I will link my most recent videos regarding Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler down in the description as well if you want to go check them out. Let me know what you guys think of all this down in the comments. Like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching.